I remember the first time I stepped into Westwood Tower. My sensible heels clicked against the marble floor of the lobby, the sound bouncing off the high ceilings and mirrored walls, making me feel smaller than I already was. I clutched my leather portfolio as if it were a shield, my resume and credentials safely tucked inside. A former financial crimes investigator applying for an executive assistant position. It seemed like a step down, but after the burnout I'd experienced in my previous role, I was desperate for a change of pace. "Ms. Catherine Palmer," the receptionist's voice cut through my thoughts. "Mr. Westwood will see you now, 52nd floor." The elevator ride gave me time to compose myself, to rehearse the answers to questions I anticipated. I didn't expect to be interviewed by the heir himself. I'd assumed it would be HR, maybe a department head. Not Nathan Westwood, the only son of the infamous Selena Westwood, matriarch and majority shareholder of Westwood Enterprises. When the elevator doors slid open, I was met with a sprawling reception area bathed in natural light from floor to ceiling windows. The Manhattan skyline stretched out beyond, a testament to the wealth and power contained within these walls. "Ms. Palmer," a deep voice called out, and I turned to see a tall man approaching, hand extended. "Nathan Westwood, thank you for coming in today." Nathan wasn't what I expected. Where I'd anticipated arrogance, there was quiet confidence. Where I'd expected cold calculation, there was warmth. His eyes, a clear, striking blue, crinkled slightly at the corners when he smiled, betraying a sincerity that seemed out of place in the sterile corporate environment. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Westwood," I replied, shaking his hand firmly. "Please call me Nathan," he said, leading me toward his office. "I've reviewed your application. It's quite impressive. Though I must admit, I'm curious why someone with your background in financial crimes investigation would be interested in an executive assistant position." I gave him the rehearsed answer, seeking new challenges, interested in the corporate world, ready for a change. But even as I spoke, I wondered if he could see through it. Could he tell that I was running from burnout, from the emotional toll of chasing white-collar criminals who always seemed to stay one step ahead, that I was tired of fighting battles I couldn't win? Nathan listened intently, nodding occasionally. When I finished, he leaned forward in his chair. "Catherine, I appreciate your candor, but I think there's more to it," he said, his gaze steady. "You've spent your career pursuing justice in financial crimes. That's not something one walks away from easily." I hesitated, weighing my options. Honesty might cost me the job, but something about Nathan made me want to trust him. "You're right," I admitted. "I got tired of watching the wealthy and well-connected escape consequences while smaller offenders took the fall. The system is broken and I couldn't fix it, so I thought I'd try something new." To my surprise, Nathan smiled. "That's exactly why I want to hire you, Catherine. I need someone who understands what to look for, who knows when something doesn't add up. Someone with integrity." I left Westwood Tower that day with a job offer and a strange feeling that my life was about to change in ways I couldn't anticipate. I had no idea how right I was. Working for Nathan was nothing like I'd expected. He was brilliant, driven, but also kind, a rarity in the corporate world. He valued my input, encouraged my questions, and trusted my judgment. Gradually, I found myself looking forward to our long workdays, the challenges each new project presented, and most of all, the moments when it was just the two of us, working late into the evening, sharing takeout and ideas. I tell myself now that I didn't notice the way his eyes lingered on me, the way our hands would sometimes brush as we passed documents back and forth. I tell myself I didn't feel the electricity in those moments, but that would be a lie. The company Christmas party changed everything. I wore a simple black dress, nothing extravagant, but when I entered the ballroom at the Plaza Hotel, Nathan's eyes found me immediately. He was standing with a group of executives, a glass of scotch in hand, but he excused himself and made his way toward me. "You look beautiful," he said simply, and the sincerity in his voice made me blush. "Thank you," I replied, accepting the glass of champagne he offered. "You clean up pretty well yourself." The evening passed in a blur of conversation, laughter, and dancing. Nathan introduced me to various executives and board members, his hand resting lightly on the small of my back as he guided me through the crowd. Among them was Harold Bennett, a distinguished older gentleman with kind eyes who had been with the company since its founding and was Nathan's godfather. "So this is the woman who's finally got Nathan organized," Harold said with a warm smile, shaking my hand. He speaks very highly of you, Catherine. She's indispensable, Nathan replied, and the pride in his voice made my heart skip. Later, as the evening wound down, Nathan asked me to dance. As we swayed to the music, he held me closer than was strictly professional, and I found I didn't mind. I should probably tell you that I'm falling in love with you, he murmured, his lips close to my ear. I know it complicates things, and if you want to request a transfer to another department, I'll understand completely. I pulled back slightly to look at him, searching his face for any sign of insincerity. Finding none, I took a leap of faith. I don't want to transfer, I said softly. I'm falling for you too. That night changed the course of my life. Within months, Nathan and I were inseparable. Within a year, he proposed on a private yacht off the coast of Santorini, the Mediterranean sunset painting the sky in hues of gold and pink. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, Catherine, he said, down on one knee, a vintage emerald-cut diamond ring in his hand. Will you marry me? I said yes through tears of joy, believing with all my heart that we had forever ahead of us. I was wrong. We had been married for just over 2 years when it happened. I had been working from home that day, preparing reports for an upcoming board meeting. Nathan had called around noon. I'll be home late tonight, he said, his voice sounding strangely distant. There's something I need to look into, don't wait up. Is everything okay? I asked, detecting the worry in his voice. There was a pause before he answered. I'm not sure yet, but I'll figure it out. Then, softer, I love you, Catherine, more than anything. I love you too, I replied, feeling a strange unease settle over me. Be careful. Those were the last words I ever spoke to my husband. The police came to our door at 2:17 a.m. 2 officers, their expressions grave, hats in hand. Mrs. Westwood, I'm Officer Rivera and this is Officer Chen. May we come in? The world collapsed around me as they explained that Nathan's car had gone off the road on a sharp curve, crashing through the guardrail and into the ravine below. He was pronounced dead at the scene. They suspected he might have fallen asleep at the wheel. He'd been working late hours, they'd heard. But Nathan never fell asleep while driving. He was always cautious, always alert. It didn't make sense. Nothing made sense anymore. The next days passed in a blur of grief so profound it was physical pain. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. The thought that I would never see Nathan again, never hear his laugh, never feel his arms around me was more than I could bear. I barely registered the funeral arrangements, the countless people offering condolences, the flowers that filled our home with a sickly, sweet scent that made me nauseous. I was drowning in a sea of loss, and no one could reach me. No one except Selena Westwood, Nathan's mother, who swept into my life like a cold wind, bringing with her not comfort but contempt. I had met Selena before, of course, at company functions, at our engagement party, at our wedding. She had never approved of me. In her eyes, I was a nobody, a former government employee who had somehow ensnared her son. She had been civil for Nathan's sake, but the chill in her eyes whenever she looked at me left no doubt about her true feelings. Now, with Nathan gone, she didn't bother to hide her disdain. The day after the funeral, she summoned me to her office at Westwood Tower. I went, numb with grief, expecting perhaps some small measure of shared sorrow. What I found instead was a predator preparing to strike. Selena sat behind her massive desk, impeccably dressed in black, not a hair out of place. At 62, she was still a striking woman with the same blue eyes as Nathan, though hers were cold as ice. Catherine, she said, not bothering to stand when I entered, sit down. I did as I was told, feeling like a child called to the principal's office. I'll get straight to the point, Selena continued, her voice clipped. Nathan's death was a tragedy, one I'm still struggling to process, but business must continue. Westwood Enterprises cannot afford a power vacuum. I nodded, uncertain where this was going. As you know, Nathan held a significant portion of company shares, 27% to be exact. As his mother and the majority shareholder, I naturally expected those shares to revert to me upon his death. My heart began to pound. I had no idea what Nathan's will contained. We discussed it briefly, but he'd always changed the subject, saying we had plenty of time for such morbid topics. However, Selena continued, her voice hardening, it seems my son made some imprudent changes to his will shortly before his death, changes that I believe were influenced by outside parties. Her gaze bore into me, accusatory. I don't understand, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Then let me be clear. Nathan revised his will 6 months ago, leaving everything, his shares, his personal assets, everything, to you. She spat the last word like it tasted bitter on her tongue. I sat in stunned silence. Nathan had never mentioned this to me. I intend to contest the will, Selena went on. I believe Nathan was not of sound mind when he made these changes. The idea that he would leave his birthright, his legacy, to someone he'd known for barely 5 years, rather than to his family, is absurd. Anger began to cut through my grief. We were married, Selena. I was his family. She laughed, a cold, brittle sound. You were a distraction, a phase. Nathan would have tired of you eventually once he realized his mistake. But now we'll never know, will we? I stood up, shaking with rage and grief. I loved your son. He loved me. I'm sorry if that's difficult for you to accept, but it's the truth. Love, Selena scoffed. What do you know about love? This was about money from the beginning. A gold digger with a respectable background, clever, I'll give you that. I turned to leave, unable to bear another moment in her presence. You won't win, Catherine, she called after me. I built this company from nothing. I won't let you take it from me. I paused at the door, looking back at the woman who should have been my ally in grief but had chosen to be my enemy. I never wanted your company, Selena. I only wanted your son. But you couldn't even let me have that, could you? I left before she could respond, my mind reeling. As I rode the elevator down to the lobby, I realized that beneath my grief, a seed of suspicion had been planted. Why had Nathan changed his will without telling me? What had he been investigating the night he died? And why did the timing of it all feel so wrong? The reading of Nathan's will took place 3 days later at the offices of Reeves and Associates. Jacob Reeves had been Nathan's personal attorney for years, a fact that clearly irritated Selena, who arrived with her own team of lawyers in tow. I sat across from her in the conference room, feeling small and overwhelmed. The only familiar face besides Jacob's was Harold Bennett's. The elderly board member had reached out to me after the funeral, offering his condolences and his support. Nathan thought the world of you, he had told me, his eyes misty with tears. You made him happier than I'd ever seen him. Now Harold gave me a reassuring nod as Jacob began to read the will. The contents were just as Selena had said. Nathan had left everything to me. His personal assets, his properties, and most significantly, his 27% stake in Westwood Enterprises. What Selena hadn't mentioned was the letter that accompanied the will, addressed to me. Mrs. Westwood has requested that I read this letter privately with Catherine, Jacob said, looking up from the document. If you'll all excuse us for a moment. Selena's face contorted with rage. That's absolutely unacceptable. As the deceased's mother and the CEO of Westwood Enterprises, I have every right. With all due respect, Mrs. Westwood, Jacob interrupted firmly, the instructions in Mr. Westwood's will are explicit. This letter is for Catherine's eyes only. I am bound by my professional obligations to honor my client's wishes. Selena looked ready to explode, but Harold placed a calming hand on her arm. Selena, this is Nathan's final wish. Surely we can respect that. After a tense moment, Selena nodded curtly, and everyone filed out of the room, leaving me alone with Jacob. Once the door closed, Jacob handed me an envelope. Nathan gave this to me about a month before his death, he said quietly. He made me promise to give it to you if anything happened to him. With trembling hands, I opened the envelope and began to read. My dearest Catherine, if you're reading this, something has happened to me, and for that I am so deeply sorry. More than anything, I wanted a long life with you, filled with all the joy and adventure we'd planned together. But I've discovered something I can't ignore. For the past 8 months, I've been investigating discrepancies in the company's financial records. What I found shocked me to my core. Mother has been involved in extensive tax evasion and money laundering through shell companies in the Cayman Islands. The sums involved are staggering, hundreds of millions of dollars over the past decade. I've documented everything meticulously. You'll find a USB drive in the false bottom of the second drawer of my desk at home. It contains all the evidence, bank statements, transfers, emails, everything the authorities would need to bring charges. I confronted Mother last week. I don't know what I thought, that she would explain that there would be some legitimate reason. There wasn't. She threatened me, Catherine, her own son. She said she would destroy anyone who tried to expose her, including me. I'm scared not for myself, but for you. That's why I changed my will. With my shares, you'll have enough power to protect yourself. Mother won't be able to push you out easily, and Jacob will help you. He knows everything. If something happens to me, don't trust the official story. Look deeper, and when you're ready, make her pay for what she's done. I love you more than words can express. You brought light and love into my life when I didn't even know it was missing. Whatever happens, know that loving you was the best thing I ever did. Forever yours. Nathan. I looked up at Jacob, tears streaming down my face. He knew, I whispered. He knew something might happen to him. Jacob nodded grimly. Nathan came to me with his suspicions about a year ago. We've been building the case quietly ever since. He wanted to handle it internally at first to protect the company and the employees, but when he confronted Selena, she had him killed, I said, the words falling from my lips like stones. It wasn't a question. Jacob's silence was answer enough. We can't prove it, he said finally. The police investigation ruled it an accident, no evidence of foul play but the timing. What do I do now? I asked, clutching Nathan's letter like a lifeline. That depends on what you want, Catherine. Nathan left you with options. You could sell your shares, walk away from all of this. Or I could finish what he started, I said, a cold resolve settling over me. I could make her pay. Jacob studied me carefully. It won't be easy. Selena is powerful with connections everywhere. She'll fight you every step of the way. I thought of Nathan, of his kindness, his integrity, his love. I thought of how his life had been cut short because he couldn't look the other way. I thought of Selena's cold eyes as she called me a gold digger. I don't care how hard it is, I said, wiping away my tears. For Nathan, I'll do whatever it takes. That night, I found the USB drive exactly where Nathan said it would be. With shaking hands, I plugged it into my laptop and began to go through the files. Hours turned into days as I immersed myself in the evidence Nathan had gathered. The scale of Selena's crimes was astounding. Shell companies in the Cayman Islands, fake vendors, manipulated books. She had been siphoning money from Westwood Enterprises for years, evading taxes on a massive scale and laundering money for what appeared to be several high-profile clients. Nathan had documented everything with meticulous care. Bank statements, wire transfers, emails, meeting minutes, all compiled in a damning trail that led directly to Selena. There were also recordings, conversations Nathan had secretly taped during meetings with his mother where she openly discussed the illegal operations. As I dug deeper, I found a detailed plan that Nathan had begun to formulate. He had been preparing to take his mother down, to expose her crimes and take control of the company. Now, it was up to me to finish what he'd started. With Jacob's help, I began to put the pieces in place. First, I secured my position within the company. Though Selena tried to challenge the will, the legal documents were ironclad. With my 27% stake and the support of key board members like Harold, I had enough influence to prevent Selena from pushing me out. Next, I focused on protecting the company's legitimate assets. Working quietly with Jacob, we moved funds out of accounts that Selena could access, securing them against any last-ditch efforts she might make to drain the company's resources. All the while, I maintained a facade of grief-stricken widow, attending board meetings with downcast eyes, speaking little, giving Selena no reason to suspect that I was methodically dismantling her power base from within. It took 3 months of careful planning before I was ready to make my move. During that time, Selena grew increasingly confident that she had won, that I was too broken by grief to challenge her. Her contempt for me worked in my favor. She underestimated me at every turn. The day I decided to confront her, I dressed with care. A charcoal gray suit, pearl earrings that Nathan had given me for our first anniversary, my wedding ring, armor for the battle ahead. I asked Jacob to arrange a private meeting with Selena in Nathan's old office, which had remained untouched since his death. It seemed fitting that this should end where it began. Selena arrived precisely on time, her expression a mixture of irritation and curiosity. This had better be important, Catherine. Unlike some people, I have a company to run. I gestured for her to sit, remaining standing myself. The power dynamic shifted subtly. I was in control now, not her. I won't take much of your time, I said calmly. I just wanted to inform you personally that I've been in contact with the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. They're very interested in the information I've provided about Westwood Enterprises' financial activities over the past decade. The color drained from Selena's face, but she quickly composed herself. I don't know what you're talking about. I smiled, pulling out a manila folder from my briefcase and placing it on the desk between us. This is a copy of what I've given them. Bank statements from the Cayman accounts, emails between you and your co-conspirators, recordings of meetings where you explicitly discussed tax evasion strategies. Nathan was very thorough. Selena's eyes widened. Nathan, what does he have to do with this? Everything, I replied, my voice hardening. He discovered what you were doing, he confronted you, and a week later he was dead. That's absurd, Selena hissed, but I could see the fear behind her anger. It was an accident, the police confirmed. The police might not be able to prove you had your own son killed, I cut in. But the IRS doesn't need that to put you away for a very long time. Tax evasion, money laundering, wire fraud, you're looking at decades in federal prison, Selena. She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. You stupid girl. Do you have any idea who you're dealing with? I built this company from nothing. I have connections you can't even imagine. I'll destroy you. I didn't flinch. You can try, but it's already too late. The IRS has everything, and so does the FBI. As we speak, they're executing search warrants at your home and at the company's satellite offices. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Jacob. Raid in progress, all going according to plan. It's over, Selena, I said quietly. You've lost. She lunged across the desk, her manicured hands reaching for my throat. I stepped back quickly, putting distance between us. You think you've won? She spat, her composure completely gone now. You're nothing, a nobody who got lucky. Nathan was weak. He always was. That's why it was so easy to. She stopped abruptly, realizing she'd said too much. To what, Selena? I asked, my heart pounding. To arrange his accident. She laughed, a harsh, brittle sound. Prove it, she taunted. You can't, no one can. Maybe not, I conceded. But I don't need to. The financial crimes are enough. You'll spend the rest of your life in prison, your reputation in tatters, your legacy destroyed. And I'll be here running the company Nathan loved, making it everything he wanted it to be. The hatred in her eyes was palpable, but beneath it, I saw something else. Fear. For the first time in her life, Selena Westwood was afraid. Security will escort you out, I said, pressing the intercom button on Nathan's desk. Your personal items will be sent to your attorney. As two security guards entered the office, Selena straightened her spine, trying to maintain some semblance of dignity. This isn't over, she warned as the guards approached. I looked at her, this woman who had taken everything from me, and felt not triumph but a profound sadness. Yes, Selena, I said softly, it is. The fallout was swift and merciless. The evidence against Selena was overwhelming, and within weeks she was indicted on multiple federal charges. Rather than face a trial and the public scrutiny it would bring, she opted for a plea deal. 15 years in federal prison, forfeiture of personal assets gained through illegal activities, and a fine of $75 million. The financial press had a field day. Westwood matriarch FALLS from Grace, the headlines screamed. Tax fraud scheme exposed by daughter-in-law. The story captured the public imagination, the grieving widow who discovered her mother-in-law's crimes and brought her to justice. What the press didn't know, what no one knew except Jacob and me, was the suspicion that lingered like a shadow, that Selena had been responsible for Nathan's death. We had no proof, only circumstantial evidence and the timing of events. It was a truth I would have to carry alone. In the months that followed, I threw myself into restructuring Westwood Enterprises. With Selena gone and my position as major shareholder secure, I was elected CEO by the board. Harold became my closest advisor, his decades of experience invaluable as we worked to repair the damage Selena had done. We rebranded the company as Westwood Palmer Enterprises, a nod to both the company's history and its future. We implemented stringent financial oversight measures and established a corporate ethics division. Slowly, the company's reputation began to recover. But the most significant change came a year after Nathan's death, when I established the Nathan Westwood Foundation, dedicated to supporting whistleblowers who exposed corporate wrongdoing. The foundation provided legal assistance, financial support, and protection for those brave enough to stand up against corruption. It was my way of honoring Nathan, of ensuring that his death had meaning. He had died because he refused to look the other way, because he believed in doing what was right, no matter the cost. The foundation would carry on that legacy. On the anniversary of his death, I visited his grave alone. The headstone was simple, elegant, just as he would have wanted. I placed a bouquet of lilies, his favorite, against the cool marble and sat on the grass beside him. "It's done," I said softly. "She's gone, the company is safe. I did everything you asked, everything you planned for." A gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the oak tree that shaded his grave, and for a moment I could almost feel his presence. "I miss you," I whispered, tears welling in my eyes. "Every day, every moment, I keep expecting to hear your key in the lock, to feel your arms around me. I don't know if that feeling will ever go away." I traced the letters of his name on the headstone, my fingers lingering on each carefully carved line. "The foundation is doing well. We've already helped 3 whistleblowers come forward, exposed 2 major corporations for environmental violations. You would be proud." I sat in silence for a while, listening to the distant sounds of the city. "I don't know if I'll ever find peace with how you were taken from me," I said finally. "But I promise you I'll keep fighting. I'll keep making sure that people like your mother can't get away with their crimes, that your death wasn't in vain." As I stood to leave, I pressed my lips to the cold stone. "I love you, Nathan, always." Walking back to my car, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The journey had been long and painful, but I had fulfilled my promise to Nathan. I had brought his mother to justice, had protected his legacy, had ensured that the truth, at least part of it, came to light. There was still work to be done, a company to lead, a foundation to grow. But for the first time since Nathan's death, I felt something like hope stirring within me. Not happiness, not yet, but the possibility that someday it might return. As I drove away from the cemetery, I glanced in the rearview mirror at the receding gates. "Goodbye for now," I murmured. Nathan was gone, but his vision lived on through me. And that, perhaps, was the greatest revenge of all, not the destruction of his mother, but the triumph of his ideals. The knowledge that in the end, good had prevailed over evil, truth over lies, justice over greed. It wasn't the life we had planned together, but it was a life with purpose. And for now, that would have to be enough.